There was a video I saw recently of this woman. She's a small woman, short hair, glasses, hair starting to gray, a little stout, just kind of your normal, average, middle-aged woman. The first scene in this video, she goes into a music store. And immediately she's asked if she'd like to see the pianists that are there. After that, she goes over to a rec center. And she passes by some people performing some kind of music. And immediately as she walks up to them, they ask her, "Oh, we're sorry, are we being too loud?" And finally, she ends up in a room in the rec center, a room that's marked as an audition for a cover band. And as she goes into the room, she's immediately asked, "Oh, are you lost? Is there some activity you're looking for? Now, how can we help you find where you're trying to be?" Well, it turns out that this woman is actually a drummer, and she's there to audition for that cover band. But everyone that she encounters along the way looks at her, and they don't see a drummer. What they see in her defies their expectations of what a drummer is supposed to look like. She has gone beyond their expectations. And that's really what Jesus does for us in our readings today. In our readings, we hear about the Messiah, the Son of Man, the one who is to come into the world to save God's people. And from what we see, especially in the book of the prophet Daniel, as well as in the book of Revelation, we see very specific visions that might color how we look at what the Messiah is supposed to be, that might color our expectations of what the Messiah is supposed to look like. Because what we see in these images, what we see in Daniel and Revelation, is this great being of power. We see the Son of Man descending from the clouds, great being. The vision that we have in these images is of a great leader, a great ruler, somebody who's a warrior and a king. Now, what we see with Jesus in the gospel is very different from what those images in Daniel and Revelation might conjure up in our minds. It's certainly different from what image was conjured up in the minds of those of Jesus's day and time. What we see in the gospel isn't somebody who is a warrior. We don't see somebody who is a king. We see Jesus who doesn't really want to push that title of kingship. We see Jesus a little hesitant to accept that title for himself. What we see in the gospel is Jesus at his weakest. What we see is Jesus about to be put to death. We see Jesus about to die. That image that we see of Jesus there in the gospel might not be what we're expecting. It might go against what we're looking for based on the words of Daniel and based on the words of Revelation. That's very important to see that, to see the difference in what we expect of Jesus and who Jesus actually is. What we're expecting is a great being of power. We're expecting that power to be played out in a very specific way. Power of somebody as a king, as a ruler, as someone of might. But what we see in Jesus is a very different kind of power. What we see in Jesus is a very different kind of focus. In the gospel, Jesus tells Pilate that his task here in this world is to give witness to the truth. And as we see in Paul's words in 2 Corinthians 12:9, the power of God is made perfect in weakness. And that's very much what we see in Jesus with this scene with Pilate. We see Jesus at his weakness. We see him about to die and unable to do anything about it. But it's from that weakness, it's from that lack of showing what we would call power, that Jesus does the greatest thing of all. It's from that weakness that Jesus lays the work, lays the foundation for our salvation. It's in this weakness that Jesus gives us back our lives. It's in this weakness that Jesus makes us whole. It's in this weakness that we receive life and life eternal. Jesus goes against what we might be expecting from someone of power, what we might be expecting from the Messiah. Our image of the Son of Man, of the Christ, of the Messiah coming into this world might be one of somebody of power and might, a great warrior and a king. But that's in following the ways of the world that sees power as triumphing over others, that sees power as being able to put our own ways, our own needs, our own wants and desires before others. But that's not what Jesus does. Through an act of unexpected weakness, Jesus comes into this world to bring us back to God, to restore us to life, and to make us whole once again. Jesus was not what we would have expected of the Messiah. And we are called to be likewise, to be unexpected. We're called not to follow the ways of the world that puts our own needs before others. But we're called to live into that power that's made perfect in weakness. And when we do that, when we subscribe to that power that's made perfect in weakness, we can help bring others to see who Jesus is more fully. And in that way, we can make sure that all others are able to share in that life that we have. We're able to make sure that all others can have that same connection to God that we have. And it's in this way that we can make sure that all those around us, like us, are made whole.